Hi, my name is Michael Berggren, Product Manager at Kuhn Krause, and today we're going to talk about the Quick Start Guide for the Liqui-PRO system. The Quick Start Guide can be found in your operator's manual here. You can also go on to mykuhn.com and download a mobile version for your phone that will take you step by step through the Quick Start Guide setup process. The first step in getting set up for Liqui-PRO and the Quick Start Guide would be hooking up to the tractor. So of course we want to hook up our Gladiator with our hydraulic connections, and then we want to hook up the hydraulics for Liqui-PRO. The red and green handle will be your pressure one. You connect that to an SCV, and then your green to green handle, this one here, will be high volume, low pressure return, just like you would on any other pump for a constant flow setting. So once we have our hydraulics and our machine hooked up, the next one is electronics. And so if you have an ISOBus tractor, you can see the ISOBus plug right here, and you plug that into the ISOBus receiver on the tractor. For those of you who do not have an ISOBus machine, we do offer an ITH harness and a CCI monitor that can be purchased as part of this system. Once you have the electrical connections connected to the tractor, you're going to want to take a few minutes and wait for the software to load. And as that software is loading, it would be a good idea to come out here and take a look at your rate controller and confirm that you have power to the machine, that we're getting power from the tractor to the machine, that there isn't an issue between point A and point B. One key visual indicator that you're going to see from that is there's lights blinking on the rate controller, and then you know you have power to the system and that we're good to continue with setting up the system and configuring the software. Now that we've got our hydraulic connections made to the tractor for Liqui-PRO, and we've got our ISOBus connection, knowing that we have power and that our controller is powered up, we have the flashing blinking lights, and we know that we've got the software that has been loaded onto the machine. We can see Kuhn, we can see the virtual terminal has been loaded. But one of the things you might notice is, for example, if you ordered a machine with 4-section and by default it shows up with 2-section, or you ordered the machine with our optional Tattler electronic row flow sensing technology, would normally show up here and it's not showing up. That is a sign that the machine needs to be set up in the software side. So as we walk through the software setup, we'll walk you step by step through that. Continuing the Quick Start Guide at step 4A, software setup, if you're following along, we're going to begin that by knowing that our software has been loaded onto the machine. Now to configure the machine, we're going to go to Wrench, then we're going to go to Initial Setup, we're going to go to Configuration, and this is where we're going to begin to start configuring the machine. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to scroll down, and then we want to confirm our row spacing, 30 inches, number of nozzles. This is referring to the number of rows of the machine. So in this case, we're going to be setting up a 16-row machine. Total number of sections, this is going to be a 4-section machine, so we're going to set up 4 sections. Then, once we've gotten that selected, we're going to scroll down. In this machine, we know it is enabled with Tattler. So right here, Tattler is disabled. We want to click on that. We want to enable Tattler. So we have Tattler enabled. Then as we scroll down, by default this is going to be disabled. We're going to scroll down here and we're going to select on 16-row. And once we've got that initial software setup completed, we're going to go back up, scroll up, and right here we're going to do a software restart. This software restart is going to save our settings of the software. So it's going to restart and then it's going to boot back up and save those settings that we just did. Now that we have the machine configured and we've restarted the software to where we have our settings saved, the next thing we want to do is continue with our Quick Start Guide on step 4D, where we're going to set up the pump settings. So once again, we're going to go into our wrench, then from our wrench we're going to go into pressure, and then from pressure we're going to go into pump, and here is where we're going to set some of our initial pump settings, and this is to make sure there's a good starting point for the machine, to make sure that it operates at optimum performance. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this to bypass. Then we're going to come in here and we're going to set the servo to servo min number 2 to 10. Set the servo min to 10. Then we're going to set the servo max to 90. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to set our minimum pressure to 15. Once that has been complete, we can click home to return home. Now that we have the pump set up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to continue on our quick start guide for Liqui-PRO on step 4E. We're going to start by selecting the wrench, and then we're going to go to flow. So what we're doing here is we're setting up the flow meter. And then we're going to go to flow meter setup. And right here is what we're looking for, that meter 1 calibration value. And this is where we're going to go look at the machine. We're going to read the tag and see the pulses per 10 gallons. That is the value we're looking for. Every flow meter comes calibrated from the factory with a number of pulses per 10 gallons. This one so happens to be 3544, so we're going to punch that value in here, and now we have that calibrated pulses per 10 gallons. And to complete this, we're going to hit home. Now that we have the machine, the software settings done, a good idea to do is to save those settings. So we're going to go to wrench, initial setup, configuration. We're going to scroll down. We're going to do a software restart again. The software restart is going to save those pump and pressure settings that we just did. Now that we've got the software set up in order to set our back pressure on our machine, now we get out of the cab and we come back here to the machine. So we have hydraulics on constant flow and we've turned on our pump on our software. So the pump is running. We want to start by having the back pressure valve open, and then we want to slowly close it until we get a pressure reading of 30 psi. Now this is just our initial set point to get the machine as a starting point. Another way to set the back pressure is to go through the field at your target speed and rate and see if the psi is where you want it to be. It should be between that 10 and 60 psi. If you are outside of that range, then it's a good chance you have the orifice incorrectly selected in the software or incorrectly installed on the machine. After we have our pressure set, then we are good to start applying fertilizer. One of the key things when setting up the software is to get the correct calibration value plugged into the software. That calibration value is unique to every single flow sensor, and so that flow sensor calibration value can be found on the flow sensor right here. It is labeled on a tag right here, and it will let you know how many pulses per gallon or how many pulses per 10 gallon that it needs. The value in the software is set up with a number of pulses per 10 gallons. One of the next steps in the quick start guide for getting going with Liqui-PRO is selecting your rate and speed that you think you'll be running. And with that, as you can see on the back of the quick start guide, we have this printed out very large so that you can see it. We are able to accomplish 10 to 100 gallons the acre with speeds from 4 to 8 miles per hour. And so the reason we have this chart here is for orifice selection. One of the key steps is once we've identified our target rate and the speed range that we think we'll be operating in, it gives us the orifice that we should install into the machine. As you can see, this chart is color-coded with tan, white, green, and black orifices. All of those come with the machine. They will be stored on the machine. You can just go and grab them and change what you need. So for changing that orifice, right back here, it's a quarter turn, no tools required, easy to adjust. Right there, pop that orifice out, as easy as that. Pop it right back in, and come back here and quarter turn, and away you go. Easy to adjust the entire machine in a matter of just a few minutes. With that fertilizer coming through the system, coming through our 5 psi super check, and then to our quarter turn orifice, we're then now positively placing that fertilizer and metering it precisely into the row, and so that we have positive placement of fertilizer. As we lift this up, and as we can see on the row unit, we have fertilizer tube coming down here, and we can place fertilizer. We can run either 1, 2, or 2 tubes with the Gladiator ST Pro 2 row unit. And so we are getting that fertilizer placed right in the strip to maximize emergence and yield potential. If you have purchased a Tattler sensing technology or the Tattler electronic row flow sensing technology, step 11 would be important for you. And so it is important to recognize that in your initial setup configuration, if you don't have Tattler showing up on the screen, you need to scroll down, and Tattler right here, Tattler mode number 25 needs to be showing up. We have that shown up. Now we can go back to our home screen and we can see that the Tattler button is present. And so one of the things that we need to do is we need to calibrate our Tattler sensors. Now Tattler sensors, we click on this button Tattler, as you can see, will auto recognize. It shows, in this example, I have 4 sensors plugged in and 4 are showing up. Now initially all of those will be red. You'll click Save Settings, yes, and then they will turn to green or yellow based on the position of that sensor. Now if you see a yellow or an error, please refer to Operator's Manual to diagnose that problem. But the first thing we want to do before we start running product through the machine is we want to calibrate these sensors. And we want to calibrate these sensors with no fluid running through the system. So we press the Calibrate button, click Yes, Save Settings, Yes, click Exit. And now you can see all of our Tattler sensors are calibrated to the 0 point. And they are gray because there's no product flowing through them. Once we get product flowing through them, they will turn green. Now that we've completed the quick start guide, we're ready to go to the field and apply fertilizer into our quality strip to maximize yield potential. If you need any more information on the Gladiator or Liqui-PRO, please see us at kuhn.com. Hi, my name is Michael Berggren, Product Manager at Kuhn-Krause, and today we're going to do a little bit of troubleshooting for the Liqui-PRO system. When troubleshooting section control valves, it is important to come back here and look at the machine and see how the machine is plugged in. We want the number 1 harness connection to be plugged into our first section control valve, and 2, 3, 4 as well. If you get into a situation where you've replaced a section control valve, you can see it is a 4-pin Deutsch connector. Pin 1 would be ground, pin 3 would be power, and pin 4 would be your section control wire. So pretty simple right there. When troubleshooting Tattler, this is our electronic row flow sensing technology. If you get into a situation where the bars on your display are not matching the order of sensors out onto the machine, this is where you want to look. You want to look at our Tattler Sense module, or TSM, and right here you're going to see there is a 6-pin connector that comes from the rate controller, or a pin 0.3 rate controller. And so TSM1 is going to be plugged in to Tattler Sense Module 1, and then VCM2 is going to be plugged in to Tattler Sense Module number 2. That is important for getting the correct order as you go across the machine. You notice we also have 3 Tattler sensor harnesses here. So these 3 harnesses, the first harness for Tattler Sense Module number 1 needs to be plugged in through sensors 1 through 6, and that starts on the left-hand side of the machine. Then as you progress in to the middle of the machine, that'll be Tattler Sense Module number 1, sensors 7 through 12. And then on a 16-row machine, on the far right-hand side of the machine over here, will be on Tattler Sense Module number 2, and we're going to be plugged into rows 7 through 12 in order to ensure the right order of the sensors showing up on the display. One of the other key troubleshooting members with Tattler to keep in mind is with our Tattler harness here, we have power and ground coming out and coming to our first sensor as it goes inward out towards the outer bar of the machine. So we're getting power and ground coming in the first sensor, and then it is being coming out of that and going into the second sensor. If you unplug the first sensor, it'll kill power to the rest. There's also a jumper plug right here that you can see that can be installed if you don't have a sensor there, and that will take power and ground and take it to the next sensor. So that jumper is very important to make sure that we get power to the rest of the sensors. Well, that completes our troubleshooting video for the Liqui-PRO system. Hopefully this has been helpful to alleviate some of those common things that you might run into with the Liqui-PRO system. If you have any more questions about that, please consult your operator's manual. or reach out to your local dealer. You can also see us at kuhn.com.